Hey, welcome back to Midweek Politics. I'm David Pakman. We have in studio with us Ervin Staub, professor of psychology at the University of Massachusetts down the road from us, and founding director of the Psychology of Peace and Prevention of Violence PhD at UMass. Thanks for coming down on with not great weather. Right? It's not the blizzard that was predicted, but it's not great, right?
It's not great, but it's not too bad.
So when we think about, well, you're originally from Hungary. And you spent some time in Austria. How did you eventually get to the United States?
Well,
and we need as close to the microphone as you can get is the best.
I escaped from Hungary after the revolution there in 1956, when the borders were not guarded as before. I went to Austria, and I immediately wanted to come to the States, but it took some time to get a visa. So I lived there for 2.5 years. I went to school there for a while, and then I got a visa to the States, so I came here.
And what was the first thing you did when you got here?
Well, the first thing I did was I got a job in Minnesota, in St. Paul, at a community workshop, making seats and bags for tractors. That lasted for about 2 months, and then I managed to get to the university, and I finished my undergraduate education at the University of Minnesota. And then I went on to Stanford to get a PhD in psychology there.
You liked the weather in California, I assume.
Very much so.
So when we think about the origins of mass violence, I was just yesterday, actually, I'm reading a book by Arthur C. Clarke, science fiction type of book. And interestingly enough, in the book, he mentions when we think about if we could start from scratch with intelligent beings, is there any way that we could get to the equivalent level of intelligence that humans are without going through mass violence, murder, or genocide? The argument in the book was that it's impossible, that to get to where humans are, somehow people will think of, hey, we can exterminate people we don't like, and it will be just a part of the culture. Do you agree? Is it possible? Or if we started from scratch, could we fine-tune things to avoid mass violence and genocide?
We don't really know what has gone on a very, very long time ago, but there have been some optimistic thinkers studying that time, prehistory, which they describe as very cooperative and collaborative. And in fact, a lot of the human tendencies that we have arose out of cooperation between people. In order to face nature, in order to find what we need for sustenance, people needed to cooperate. I don't think that mass violence is a necessity, that it is something that humans had to engage in order to develop. In fact, in very old times, people were in small groups. They collaborated within the group. It's unclear that they needed to fight against other groups at that level in order to be able to sustain themselves. And actually, most of the time, that's not why we do it. One of the more important sources of people turning against other groups is ideology, especially in the modern age. We have a vision of how the world should be. We have a vision of social relationships. And then we identify some people as standing in the way of that vision. And in order to fulfill that vision, we deal with this group, often by trying to exterminate them. I don't think that in old periods, very long time ago, people were that ideologically oriented, that they were that influenced by the power of ideas as we are today.
Do you think that right now there's a big deal made on two fronts? Number one, we have people, many in the U.S. and the Western world, who say a lot of the conflict we see now is because of what the Muslim religion teaches. At the same time, we have people saying the reason that many in the Middle East want to so-called terrorize the West is because of the foreign policy of the United States and of allies of the U.S. But can both of these things be true? Do you disagree that either is a factor? Where would you come down? I guess religion and foreign policy, how do those two things play in?
Well, I think that those and other things are all involved. But it's not religion as such. It's not religion itself. It is the way religion can be used, has often been used, and right now it is used by some groups, some elements within Islam. I mean, we know that religion preaches love and practices love, and religion is also a tremendous divider. If you look at any religion, in the name of that religion, people have done terrible things. I mean, look at Christianity, look at the Inquisition, look at the Crusades, not only going to fight Muslims in Jerusalem, but also along the way killing a lot of Jews. That was a perfectly normal thing to do as part of the Crusades. So every religion has occasionally created not only this division between us and them, that we are the right way to worship God, but also violently turned against others. And right now there is a stream in Islam, jihadism, which preaches this, a very severe form of Islam, and everybody else who doesn't practice that, even Muslims who don't practice that form of Islam, are regarded in a negative way as enemies.
From within the Muslim community.
Within the Muslim community. Terrorism started with groups, in particular in Egypt, for example, turning against the near enemy. The ideology was to go against Muslim countries where the leaders did not live up to the ideals of Islam that these people believed in. So first, they turned against the near enemy, like the government in Egypt. Then they shifted and turned against the far enemy. And the far enemy is the United States and other countries. Now, what about our policies?
Right.
What about our practices? Well, for one thing, they turned against us because we support the repressive Muslim dictatorships that don't live up to the ideals of Islam.
This episode of Midweek Politics has been made possible in part by Just Coffee Cooperative, fair trade coffee from around the world roasted daily at justcoffee.coop.